Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
In our last lecture, we had concluded our discussion with my pointing out to you that a certain amount of image treatment is required when we have downloaded images from the internet and if we want to use those images in our print publication. I had opened one image in Photoshop and shared with you how all photographs, all images, even if they are line drawings, anything that you have downloaded from the internet, usually the color mode is a mode called RGB. RGB is the color mode for light. Any object, any screen that uses light requires the color mode for all objects in it to be displayed as RGB. But we now know that anything that will go into a print publication must be either grayscale. Grayscale indicates to the printing press that only black and shades of black will be used for that image. We know that we either have grayscale, or if it is a colored image, then we need to make it CMYK, the 4 colors that are used by the printing press. Yesterday, I had opened up for you the image of the alligator on my screen, and I had shared with you how Photoshop, when you open an image, Photoshop shows you the color mode right here at the top of the screen, where it also shows you the name of the file. You go to image, you come to something called mode, and there you can see there are various color options. Usually RGB will be selected to show that this is an RGB image. It may look to the eye as though it is a grayscale or a black and white image, but it's RGB. So in this case, we have chosen grayscale. There is another check that you must perform, which is you come to image size. Image size, in case you missed it the first time, is also available from image size. And here you get a window that looks like this. And this DPI that I have just now highlighted, which shows 300, this is in fact the correct resolution. So then I taught you all that we go to File and we say Save As, and ideally we relabel the file with some kind of a more general name that will help us find it in the future. We make sure the format is TIFF and we save it wherever we wish. Now the alligator, when I took you through the alligator image, there was one issue. Now I'm going to open the butterfly image for you in Photoshop, and there are a number of other issues over here, which I hope you are watching carefully. You should be able to make notes and apply these to images you will be downloading. First off, right away, we can see that this image has a transparency. This image has a transparency, so there is no white as of now in the image. The check background that is showing up is Photoshop's way of telling you it is a transparency. In certain cases, a transparency is desirable, so we stick to it. In this case, it is not. So I will show you how to get rid of the transparency. On the top of your screen is an option in Photoshop called Layer. Choose Layer and come right down to an option called Flatten Image. And there you see that we do not require the transparency, and so Quark has got rid of the background and given us white instead. On your toolbar, there is an option, there is a tool called the Crop tool. The minute you select the Crop tool, like the box tool in Quark Express, you seem to get a box around the image in question. If you want, I am feeling a little disturbed by this image because it seems to me that the borders are very, very close to the image edge. I would want a little breathing room. A very easy way of getting it in Photoshop is to just extend the crop box like this. This is very useful in the case of a black and white line drawing like this, where the background is white. The minute you extend the crop box, you get more of the background that comes into your image, and then if you press enter or you double click on the image, the new selection is taken. This is the first step. The second step, as I have just shown you, is that we go to image, we go to mode, and see, as I had predicted, even though this looks like a black and white image, it needs to be made grayscale. It is in fact RGB. Having done this, I now need to check the image size. So I go back to image and I come down to image size and I check. And here we have a bit of a problem, because even though the image seems to me to be very big, currently in Photoshop, it is showing as 18 point something inches by 13 point something images. My concern is this area, which is the resolution. I would like the resolution to be 300 dpi. Now, there is a scientific and a logical way of doing this, and I would like you to pay a special attention to my screen while I am doing it, because in effect what we will do is we are going to take pixels. I have mentioned before that Photoshop reads images in terms of pixels or tiny dots. So what we are going to do is we are going to take some pixels away from the width and the height, and we are going to put those pixels into the resolution. Please understand, we are going to do this in such a way that height, width and resolution become connected, so that alterations in one will result in alterations in the next one. Do not artificially just come into Photoshop and type in 300 dpi. That is an artificial inflation of pixels, and actually your resolution does not improve. You are still left with a low resolution image. So in order to follow the method that I am trying to help you with, on the image size palette, on this menu that has come up, the first thing I expect you to do is to deselect resample. Now, the minute, if you're looking here at the height and the width, you'll notice currently there is a link symbol between width and height, which shows that the height and the width are connected. The resolution is a separate entity. The minute you deselect resample, you will notice something very significant, which is the chain option. The chain option connects not only width and height, a little extra line has come up at the bottom of the screen. So therefore, width, height and resolution are now interconnected, and this is in fact what we want. I would request you now to also keep an eye on the width and the height while I change the resolution to 300. And you will see exactly as I had mentioned, the minute we have increased the resolution to 300, the height and the width have decreased from 18 inches and 13 inches and become 4 point something and 3 point something. This is the correct way in which to treat your images. You are not introducing empty pixels out of thin air. You are merely rearranging the pixels. You are taking away the pixels from width and height and putting them into the resolution. It is very important that you do this right at the beginning. If you haven't, you might be very excited later when I discuss cover designs, selection of images for covers. You will become very excited because you will often find what you think are very big pictures on the internet. A photograph might be 24 inches by 36 inches. It could be even bigger. It could be 40 by 50 or whatever. You will be very excited that, oh my goodness, I found such a big image. This image can go right across my cover. It's so beautiful, it's so big. And you design the cover and you send it to the publisher or the author or the client, and they also love it. But later, when you are preparing that file for print, then you realize, if I have to readjust the image, if I have to make it 300 dpi, and making it 300 dpi is not an option, it is mandatory in order for the high resolution required at the printing press. Then when you readjust the pixels, suddenly then you will find your 36 by 24 picture has perhaps come down to 10 by 12, or your 10 by 12 picture has suddenly then come down to to 4 inches by 6 inches. You then cannot stretch it all over the page. The design will have to be redone. Your client will be very disappointed. It will be a very embarrassing moment for you. So please do all of this: color mode, image size, redistributing the pixels in the way that I have taught you. Remember always, before increasing from 72 to 300, sometimes the picture resolution of internet files could be 96, sometimes they could be 150. Before you do the design, you should have made all of these adjustments so that when you are in fact designing, you are very well aware of how big each picture is, right? Now, as you saw here, 18 has come down to 4 point something. That which was 13 has come down to 3 point something. This is in fact the final height and width. I say OK. And now I go to File. I say Save As I have taught you. And I would like to save this as Butterfly 01. And I save it on the desktop. When you save as TIFF, you will get this window. You need to make no changes. Just make sure that none is selected because we do not want any compression in our pictures, and simply say OK. We have now fixed our second image. This butterfly picture has the older file name, as you can see on my desktop. I don't want it because I don't want to even choose it by accident in my design. So I am going to delete it. This image that I am now selecting, called Butterfly 1, this is in fact the correct image. I had another image here, which is a picture of a bumblebee. Those of you who are not very familiar with Photoshop, sometimes your computer may not be immediately opening .png files or .svg files or .gif or .jpeg. It may not be automatically opening these in Photoshop. It may be opening them in Picture Viewer or any other photo viewing software that there is in your machine. In order to correct this, I am going to show you something right now, which is you right-click on one such PNG or GIF or something like that, and then you come and you'll see when you right-click, you get an option that says Open With, and in this case, you just choose Photoshop, right? So then you're telling the computer, open this file with Photoshop. It will not waste your time by opening it in other applications. Now, on this bumblebee picture, I make sure my crop tool is selected in Photoshop. As you can see on the left, it's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth tool on your Photoshop toolbar. The minute you select the crop tool, you get handles like the box handles in Quark that show up. I can see on this bumblebee picture, there is a bit too much white space on top and bottom. So I just close the box a little bit. I don't need so much white space, and I double click, and here is a neater area around the bumblebee. Once again, this is showing RGB. So I go to Image and I go to Mode and I say, please make it grayscale. Ideally, there is something that I have noticed. It may not happen to you a lot, but then again, it might. If you go to Image and you go to Mode, when you are changing it to grayscale, just keep your eye at this part of the menu. Ideally, it should be 8 bits channel. Sometimes Quark Express is unable to process the information from a 16 bits channel or a 32 bits channel image. Quark recognizes and can easily help you work with 8 bits channel. So the minute you see that, please, I would request you to do the additional step of changing it to an 8-bit channel image. We must go back now and check the image size. And here we are. And this also, thankfully, is already 300. So we don't need to make any further adjustments. But we have checked it. We haven't just assumed it will be. We say OK. And now I go to File and I say Save As. And here is it's going to be the B. I can delete everything else and just save it as B01. Format is PNG, but I want it to be TIFF. And I say Save, and this goes for the time being on my desktop. I have saved 3 images in the correct format. This older PNG I can delete I don't need it anymore, so I can throw it away from my desktop. Now to return to the text that we were typesetting together, here we are, butterfly B crocodile, etc. Now I, as the book designer, have seen that I feel the title of the book allows me a little bit of ornamentation like this. Even though I may not have been so instructed, I'm going to try and put them in any way. And then when I send it back to my client or to the publisher or to the editor, in my email, I will write them a little note and I will say, I have attempted a bit of text, pictorial ornamentation arising from the content. Please note that if the three words butterfly, bee and crocodile were not in this book, I would not just randomly put them on the title page, because I was experiencing a moment in my heart where I was feeling, very warm and cuddly towards animals. So I would write it in the note, I would send it and I would say, I have attempted a bit of a pictorial treatment here and there. I have attempted some image ornamentations in my design. It won't cost you any extra, because these will in any case all be printed in black, just like the rest of the text. However, should you not approve, you can let me know and I will of course remove them. I just wanted you to see how they look, on the page. I felt the content could support this little bit of an illustrated touch. Sometimes it does help to make the book look a little more interesting and more appealing to the reader. Now, I had already got these three images. You remember, I had drawn a picture box. This is a picture box. I had drawn it. When I tried to move it very close to the text, I showed you how the instinct, the default setting of picture boxes in Quark Express is in fact to, deflect text, to make text run around it. So we come down to the run around option and we change the option to none. We are saying, no, don't make the text run around. I'm trying to position a picture very close to the text. If the runaround is still on, it's going to be very annoying. The text is going to keep shifting. I had got these three pictures in over here. Then it struck me that I have not treated the images. I haven't checked their color mode. I haven't checked their sizes. So I went into Photoshop and I did what was necessary. Now when I come back here, if I double click on this picture, I can move it around. If I double click on this picture, it's telling me this picture is missing. This is something that will happen to you if you haven't done your image treatment at the beginning of your work. You bring the file in, then suddenly you decide you want to rename your pictures, you want to fix the color mode, etc., etc. When you come back into Quark Express, Quark can no longer recognize that picture. Please note that there are two significant changes you cannot make later. You cannot change the name of the file, you cannot change the file extension, and you cannot change the location of the file. Quark then says, the file used to be on the desktop, I don't know where it is now. Maybe late in the day you found a folder and then you put all the pictures inside it, but Quark is lost. Quark says, all I know is that there used to be an image on the desktop, now it's not there anymore. You have to tell me again where the new location is. If the image was called Animal 01234 and you renamed it to Butterfly 1, Quark says, I only know the name. I'm sorry, I can't find that name anywhere. You must remember that the software is not seeing the picture as you are. The software is either reading the location or the software is reading the characters in the file name. The software is not human. It is not going through your computer, looking at all the butterfly pictures and then saying, oh, I think this butterfly matches the one that was on her page, and so I must just match it up and say, yes, I found the butterfly. The reason I'm explaining this at length is, again, you must understand how the software works. When you are working in Quark Express or InDesign, the software shows you a screen image of the actual picture. It allows you to work with the picture, it allows you to place the picture, but the picture is actually a TIFF file, a Photoshop TIFF file in your computer. Quark shows you a 72 dpi screen version of it, right? But when we eventually go to print, then we have to generate a PDF, which, I will show you in later discussions. When we generate that PDF, Quark then brings into the PDF through its internal programming the high resolution version of the file, right? This is a working file. This file is a working file. You get lighter versions of the images to just move around, do your designs, etc. But when we generate that final PDF, then Quark, almost as if pulling out of the cupboard, Quark then brings out and puts into place all those 300 dpi files. And if the link between Quark and that file is broken, the link means Quark no longer can find where it was, or you have changed the name and Quark can no longer recognize that file. If that link is broken, then Quark can't put the high-res version in the PDF, and you will have a low-resolution PDF. The pictures will look very pixelated when they print, which is why I would like to request that when you start a design, you download, you photograph, you scan, whatever visual material you require. Then you do all the photo correction, all the photo treatment, the resizing, the changing to grayscale or to CMYK, and not only that, you relabel the files and you ideally put them into a new folder with the name of that project, so that everything related to that book can always be found in that folder. Don't try and tidy up your material after the project. All these connections between images and so on will be lost. Be organized right from the beginning. As a professional designer, you will not have time to go backwards. When you design something, you show it to the client gives you a few suggestions, and then you go to print, right? You make those slight changes and then you go to print. You don't have time to come backwards and then say, oh my goodness, now I have only 3 hours, maybe it's a rush job, the client wants to send it to print quickly, and then you become very confused. There are corrections to be made, so on and so forth. Then you're struggling with RGB or CMYK, etc. Do the image preparation first and then do the design. Now, here Quark is telling me that it cannot find where this picture is. So I say, okay, show me a list of the pictures that you cannot find. And Quark opens up a window. As you can see, the top of the window says missing or modified pictures, which means either these pictures have just disappeared from where they used to be, Quark cannot find them anymore, or some change has happened to these pictures, right? Modified means some change has happened. Now, if you look at the bottom, Quark is also giving me a further warning. Quark is saying this picture has been moved, or the name has been changed since it was imported. Imported means since it was brought into your design, the picture has gone away from where it was, or you have changed the name. So exactly the two problems that I told you, and it's showing you where the picture used to be. Users, because you are aware that a computer can have multiple users. So in the users, it identifies my name, identifies my desktop, and says, this is the file as it used to be. Now you tell me what to do because I can't find it anymore. You will remember the alligator drawing MN8, whatever it is, I had renamed to Alligator 1 and I had saved it as a TIFF. So the location is the same, it is still on my desktop, but it is now in a different name. The characters, the alphabets and numbers in the name have changed and Quark is unable to recognize it. So I say, okay, I highlight this, I choose my alligator drawing and highlight it, and I come to the bottom of my screen and I say update. When I say update, Quark opens up yet another window and says, all right, what do you want me to update this with? And I go to the desktop and I say, here is the new version of this image, just reconnect, relink to this file. Okay, can you see that the alligator picture has been relinked? So it has disappeared from missing or modified pictures list. The second one is the bumblebee illustration. It is giving me the same warning. This picture has been moved or the name has been changed. Again, I say update and it says with what? And I say update with this. It says okay and I say fine. And the last one, the last update required is possibly to the butterfly image. So I say this and I say update and I reconnect the picture to the butterfly, and now no more missing or modified pictures. Quark has recognized all of the images. Now you will remember, I think you may remember, that the alligator was in fact at 300 dpi. The bumblebee was also at 300 dpi, so there was no change in the width or the height of the image. The picture has shifted a little bit in the box because you will remember we cropped it and lost some of the white space. This can be rectified by double clicking, right? If you double click on a picture box, you can access the content, and I have just readjusted the space. The main change that has happened is the change that I was mentioning earlier to you, which is that you need, therefore, if you look on my screen and you see what has happened to the butterfly, you will realize why it is so important to do all your picture resizing at the beginning. When we began with the 72 dpi butterfly, the butterfly was filling the entire box. Now we have gone to Photoshop, we have readjusted the size, and we have seen how a very big picture has become a comparatively smaller picture because we took away some of the pixels from the width and the height and put them into the resolution in order to bring it up to 300. Now that I come back in the same box, the picture of the butterfly is occupying much less space. It is not, in fact, filling up the box as it was earlier. This is why I told you we need to do this before. Pictures will become smaller, your design will change, right? What the butterfly earlier was filling up the whole box like this, the minute we readjusted the resolution, that's how tiny it became. In many cases, it may not be a problem. In this particular design, we don't necessarily want a very gigantic butterfly. We just want a hint of the animal. So it is sitting here in the box. Now, sometimes in Quark Express, we can, as I just told you, we can push and pull the picture handles and make pictures bigger or smaller, right? Now, having done this, I need to always keep my eye whenever I am modifying pictures like this. I'm making them a little smaller, I'm making them a little larger, etc. I need to always keep an eye on this part of my screen where the X and the Y is right now, where it is hovering, because it is showing me a percentage. This percentage is very important to keep in mind because this ideally should not cross 100%. 35%, 45%, up to 100, you are fine. 100% means the full size in Adobe Photoshop. Remember, this is a reflection of the Photoshop file. 100% means full size. If you cross 100%, the DPI, there is another bit of this bar that I would like you to keep open. There is a DPI option here. You'll notice the smaller your picture is, the bigger the DPI, and that is fine. If you keep looking at the screen, I am going to straighten this box by using the rotate arrow that comes at the corner of boxes. Right now, this image, look at my screen here where my cursor is, it is showing 35.9%. If I increase this box and the picture, right, let's go up, up, up. It has become 101% now, right? Can you look here again? 101%. The minute it's 101%, you will notice the DPI is dropping. The logic for this is that at 100%, which is the maximum size, this was a 300 DPI picture in Photoshop. If you expand the size beyond what the true size is in Photoshop, obviously the DPI will start to drop. So visually, Quark will not say, no, 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 you can't put it. Quark will let you push and pull any picture to as large as you want it, right? I'm having a great time designing. For some reason, I want an absolutely gigantic butterfly spread across my book like this, and I'm having a wonderful time pushing open or closing my box and trying to imagine what the butterfly will look like if it is very large. But as a reminder to myself, Quark has an alert system, which is I come and look here and I get a nasty shock because in my pushing open and pulling open this image, 184%, oh my goodness, it's almost 200%, which is almost double the Photoshop image size. And as you can see to the right here of my screen, the DPI has dropped alarmingly. So an easiest way is to just come here and type 100%. The width and the x-axis and the y-axis takes the 100% simultaneously. My DPI has returned to 300 and I realize that this is as big as my picture can be on the page. To very quickly resize the box around the butterfly, I just right click and I say fit box to picture and I realize great, this is as big as my butterfly is going to be. So I have to keep that in mind when I'm designing. I can't let it cross 100% because that is Quark's way of telling me the actual image in Photoshop is not that big. Stick to 100%. Okay, this is a little bit of a reminder to yourselves. Now, the other problem you are noticing perhaps already is that now when I'm bringing the butterfly close to my text, the butterfly seems to have, the box of the butterfly seems to have a color which is in fact obscuring the text. So in order to fix that, the first thing that I do is I make sure that my color palette is open from the window option, right? The same place where we got page layout, we now have a color palette option. Please keep that open on the side. Whenever you are interacting with the colors in any image in your design, often when you are working only with black text, you don't really need to interact with the colors. So because my screen tends to become then very cluttered, when I'm working on typesetting, the page sequence is more important. I keep the page layout open, and then when I need to work with the colors, then I open the color palette, right? Here, my issue now is that the box in which I have my butterfly image, that box seems to have a white color, and that is covering up my text. So on my color palette, I notice that I have quite a few options here on the top. The first one, even if you forget, remember, if you take your mouse and you hover over the options, Quark tells you what that is for. If I put my mouse here, it says background color. Background means the color of the box. I choose my box and I say none. So my background color is none, the box has no color. Great. Then why is this white showing? Every time I move the butterfly, why can't I see the text behind it? The second option that exists for a grayscale image is something called picture background. Quark tends to read grayscale images as a white area and a black area. I'm going to explain this at some length because it is fundamental to understanding, and when especially as you go along and perhaps when you go into designing covers, it is fundamental to understanding the great advantage that is provided by the software, because the software is capable of reading a grayscale image as a white area and a black area. This is only possible if you have saved that image in Photoshop as grayscale. Remember, if it is RGB or CMYK, Quark cannot give you this benefit, right? So if you are looking at this picture, Quark understands that there is a picture background which is usually by default white. If you are having trouble understanding picture background, imagine to yourself a sheet of paper. The sheet of paper is white. The marker, the felt pen, the pencil, the pen, whatever it is that you have used to draw this butterfly is black. So the picture background is effectively the sheet of paper on which you have made your drawing. By default, that is white. We can in Quark turn it to none. The minute it is none, do you see the great fun that's happened here? The black remains, the white is gone. This is why I said that for black and white images, even when you are working with maps, with line drawings, interesting little icon type images like this, if it's going to be grayscale, you don't need to worry about saving it as a PNG or saving it as a transparency in Photoshop. If you just save it as a grayscale, you can bring it into Quark and do the transparency there, so you don't need to make more work for yourself, right? Keep this in mind. For CMYK images that require transparency, I will show you in subsequent lectures how to treat those images. But for grayscale images that require some kind of transparency, you can just do it locally in Quark, and your file, your root source file in Photoshop can just be a grayscale TIFF, absolutely no problem. So we have knocked this off. This is wonderful. I will do the same in the other two. I will go to background and make sure it's none. I will go to picture background and make sure it's none. And the butterfly can stay in black as it is. I come down to the alligator and I do the same. Picture background. The first is the box background is none. I make sure the picture background, which is always white, I turn it to none. And then the picture is black, which is perfectly okay. Now, I sort of fidget and fiddle with these pictures a little bit until I feel I'm making these bigger or smaller. For those of you watching, if you press Shift, Alt and Control on a PC, 3 keys, Shift, Alt and Control. If you're on a Mac, it's Shift, Option, Command. Okay? Shift, Option, Command or Shift, Alt lets you move the box and the content simultaneously. First, you press the 3 keys, and can you see if you drag one of the handles, automatically you can make the box and the content as large as you want. This is a shortcut. So now I'm using it to figure out how exactly do I want all the pictures on this page, or perhaps since page 2 is a blank in any case, perhaps I could have just a little arrangement of the animals or insects in question over here, right? I could just do this. Let me move this here. Now, technically, bumblebees are often much smaller than butterflies. So let's have a little bee, and we can have perhaps the alligator at the bottom over here, looking up at the bumblebee and the butterfly that are flying in the air, right? We are just constructing a scenario here. If you want to see what the design will look like, you can always go to guides, go to view, I beg your pardon, and unselect guides. And here you have a page, right? A little bit of the drama visually is happening on the left side. You have the title on the right, and the rest of the book remains as it is. If you want this to look more like a little bit of a trailer, you can tease the reader by perhaps having just one of the items over here. Immediately, the question will arise in the mind of the reader that, oh, the story says butterfly, bee and crocodile. There's only a bee, and before they know it, perhaps they will be, turning the page to see when the other two make an appearance, and sort of, here they all are, right? Please don't forget to save. Another visual effect that is possible with grayscale images is that we can change the depth of the black. So here we have the bumblebee. I can always copy and paste this box to get another bumblebee. When I hover near the edge, you'll notice my cursor has completely changed, right? Usually this is my box. The minute I come to the corner of the box, Quark gives me a certain, curved cursor, which alerts me to the possibility of rotating, right? This is the cursor that helps you rotate boxes. So this bumblebee, I rotate a little more. In order to create the illusion of several bumblebees, I can perhaps make this even a little more small, and I can simply maybe choose to have it here again. The other option that I was just mentioning is, as you can see, that the picture color is black. If I come here to where it shows 100%, I can reduce this. I can reduce this percentage to make it a shade of gray, and see how this butterfly is now in a shade of grey, right? This is how you can make the same picture just look a little different by changing the shade, the depth of the color. There is something else that you can do with the color. This first one is the intensity of the color, and the second one is what we call opacity, which means how deep is that color going to show up. I'll show it to you more clearly with this black circle over here. If I put the black circle, on top of the bumblebee, you can't see it. But if I zoom in a little bit, right, that's better for you on your screen. This black circle seems to have completely covered the bumblebee. The option for opacity, if you bring the arrow down by gripping the sidebar, can you see the box? The depth is remaining 100% of the color, but the opacity, which means it is becoming more or less transparent. Sometimes tampering with the level of opacity also creates very interesting effects. Opacity is different from shade. I can make this 100%, I can make the whole box a solid shade of grey and you still can't see the bumblebee through it. This is a solid color, right? The minute I affect opacity, I'm instructing Quark to make it see-through, right? How transparent is the box, and then you get visibility. I would like to conclude over here with the basic treatment and preparation of grayscale images for design. In my next session with you, I will carry this forward and slowly we will move towards working with handling also CMYK or full color images.
Hello, I am A.K. Sharma and I teach sociology in IIT Kanpur. You may ask, how do sociologists view religion? Religion is becoming an important issue for our society. Now, sociologists, this is true that sociologists explain one thing in terms of other things of society. So, religion, if you ask sociologists to explain religion, they will explain religion in terms of other things of society like education, economic development. In sociology of religion, there are two major traditions actually. In one tradition, to use language of methodology, in one tradition, religion is a dependent variable. In another tradition, religion is an independent variable. What I mean is that in the view of Karl Marx, who said that religion is the opium of the working class, religion is closely associated with contradictions or relations of class in society. Marx believed that as time passes, societies evolve, and this evolution of society is dialectical, like from a classless society to a class society, class formation, and eventually again a classless society will emerge. Karl Marx believed that laws of human behavior or laws of society are specific to stage of development of society and are closely associated with mode of production or tools and techniques of production and ownership of tools and techniques of production. To Karl Marx, who think that a modern society is a capitalist society, religion is the dependent variable which needs to be explained in terms of class relations. And when he says that religion is the opium of the working class, it means that religion is used by the powerful class, the class which owns the means of production, to legitimize their class position or to confuse the workers. Let the workers think that if they are poor, if they are exploited, and if they suffer from various kinds of problems, it is because of their fate or their deeds in the previous births, and not develop the revolutionary consciousness to analyze the real causes of their poverty or exploitation or ill health. This is one view, and religion is the dependent variable, which also means that tomorrow in socialist society or in communist society, if it ever emerges and society becomes classless once again, religion may not exist. Now, according to another view, Max Weber, religion is actually the independent variable that explains emergence of something else, and that something else is the emergence of capitalism. Max Weber said that unlike in the Hindu countries or the Muslim countries or Christian countries where influence of Catholic Christianity was rampant, capitalism as we understand by capitalist institutions, capitalism could not have developed. It does not mean that people, Hindus or Muslims or Catholic Christians, they were not acquisitive in nature, but there was a difference between them and those influenced by Protestant ethics in certain countries of Western Europe. And the difference was that these people did not use what they earned from their enterprises for comforts or for saving or for security or for status or prestige, but whatever they earned from their enterprise, they further invested this in the enterprise itself, and they lived simple life. By living simple life and spending the earnings back in the enterprise leads to emergence of capitalism in Western Europe. Here you see that religion is the cause. So, at some point of time, some philosopher, his name was Calvin, who gave a new turn to Christianity and propounded the philosophy of a new philosophy of Protestantism, also called Puritanism, the theory of predestination, which created anxiety in people's mind to know whether they are elect or not, whether after their death they will go to hell or heaven. So, this reinvesting in enterprise and not using the profits for their own gains or for their own comforts, this produce capitalist society or in simple language industrialization, or this produce economic development first in the countries of Northwest Europe. And another issue which sociology tackles with regard to religion is whether we are secularizing. Now, it has been found that in the Western countries with urbanization, economic development, industrialization, education, democracy, there is a fall in religiosity. But in our country, secularization is defined in a different way, because we are a plural society, and for thousands of years all religions have been juxtaposed in our country. So, we define secularization as a process in which state maintains equal distance from all the religions, but does not become irreligious state. So, but this kind of definition or this approach of state obviously is going to raise new issues, new social problems and religious issues, other issues, but this is what it is. So, sociologists of religion will also study this process of tensions in the process of secularization in a plural country like India. Thank you. I am A.K. Sharma and I teach sociology at IIT Kanpur. I am going to address the question, what is the relevance of statistics in sociology? In India, there is some confusion about role of statistics in sociology, and most of the students of sociology suffer from what I call phobia of statistics. But actually, if you look at history of sociology or the kind of work that are being done in sociology or which are published in prestigious academic journals, you find that there is a lot of use of statistical methods, and not simple methods, very advanced methods. All of you know, as students of sociology, you know that one of the founding fathers of sociology, Comte, or another founding father, Emile Durkheim, they said that sociology is one subject which differs from other subjects in the questions that they try to answer, but they use the same method, the method of science. And that in sociology, those who believe in this kind of approach, they are called positivists. Emile Durkheim called them positivists. They believe that social issues must be studied by using observations, experiments, and other modes of collection of data. Now, statistics can help sociologists in three ways. Because if sociology is about social facts or patterns, not individuals, patterns of thinking, patterns of feeling, patterns of acting, behaving, and they can be measured, they can be quantified, and that explanation of one social fact can be given only in terms of other facts. We need statistics, because statistics can measure these facts. Statistics can describe these facts. So, one branch of statistics, we can call it descriptive statistics, can help us in summarizing data, in measuring facts, like you are all familiar with simple statistical things like mean, mode, median, or methods of dispersion, standard deviation, range, variance. These are descriptive measures. They can also be used to measure skewness or symmetry or asymmetry in the data. Other types of statistical methods, which are called inferential statistics, are used to test hypotheses. We know that any science, including sociology, if we follow that positivistic tradition, is about testing hypotheses using scientific methods. And for testing hypotheses, like for comparative purposes, comparing means of two samples or comparing variances of two samples or comparing correlation coefficients or regression coefficients, we need inferential statistics. And if you are familiar with some of them, t-test, z-test, chi-square test, f-test, these are the tests which come under inferential statistics. We use statistics for drawing inferences about two or more samples. And thirdly, statistics can also be used for posing new questions. I remember that a few months ago, I read an article in Population and Development Review in which the authors Cole and Gramajo, they tried to explain homicide rates and variations in homicide rates across countries in the entire world. And they found, based on statistical analysis, logistic regression and all, they found that one factor which explains variations in homicide rates in the world is female education. Not culture, not governance so much, not even male education, but female education. Now, if facts are showing this, so you have a new sociological question, why is it that rise in female education leads to higher homicide rates, and Cole and Gramajo then gave certain hypotheses. You may not agree with those hypotheses, you may conduct this study on your own or test these hypotheses given by Cole and Gramajo using statistical methods. But the point I am making that in addition to describing data, drawing inferences, statistical methods can also be used for raising new questions in sociology. And of course, you are all familiar that whenever the issue of prediction comes, predicting population of India, predicting urbanization, predicting per capita income of India 20 years from now, 50 years from now, there also statistical methods are of great help. And finally, statistical methods have been used in monitoring and evaluation of development policies run by various governments and NGOs. Thank you very much. Hello, I am Professor A.K. Sharma and I teach sociology in IIT Kanpur. I am taking up a question, what is world population crisis? World population crisis refers to explosive growth of population which occurred during 1950s and 1960s. For millions of years, some people estimate that perhaps man appeared on this planet Earth 5 lakhs years ago. It took these 5 lakhs years for world population to reach first billion in 1820 AD, and that means that the population in ancient times must have been rising at rate 0.000 something percent per year. Now, in 1950s and 1960s in the world, you find that population started growing at rate more than 2% per year. This is what is meant by population crisis. You can imagine that if a population grows or anything grows at 2% per year, then in about 35 years time it can double. And obviously, particularly in the context of less developed countries, it had implications for poverty removal, for employment generation, for maintaining health, improving life expectancy, raising educational levels, etc., etc. The reason behind this population crisis was improvement in life expectancy or improvement in general health standards of populations. You may not be knowing, or you will be surprised to know that about 100 years ago in our country, life expectancy means average age of death or average age of life, whatever you say, of a newly born child was only 20 years, and today it has reached the level of 68 years. Much of this improvement in less developed countries occurred in 1950s and 60s, and therefore, with improvement in health, improvement in life expectancy or average age of birth, average age of death, and population started growing at explosive rates, and people started writing about this. This is population explosion, or this is population crisis. And now one can say that the period of peak growth rate is over, and from 1971 onwards in the world as well as in our country, growth rate of population has started declining. Now, in India you may like to know what is the current growth rate of India's population. Currently India's population is growing at 1.5% per year, and the reason is that after sudden or unexpected improvement in health conditions in 50s and 60s, which led to population crisis, we find that today average number of children has also started coming down. So, there was a time when average number of children per woman was around 11 or 12, now it has come down to 2.5, and therefore, the growth rate of India's population has come down to 1.5%, and we can hope that in the future, means in the coming decades, even if nothing changes on the front of fertility or number of children, India's growth rate of population will decrease further and eventually come to a zero level, as said by the 11th 5-year plan of India. And now the major cause of high growth rate of population is not high fertility, but the age distribution of population. So, we have a high percentage of population at the younger ages, and that is the cause of high rate of growth of population. Eventually, when population of India will also age like population of other developed countries, our growth rate will start falling. Thank you. Now, we will meet in the future.